Hello and welcome to the Wilder Lincolnshire podcast from the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust. I'm Melvin Pryor, out and about today. We're at the Whisby Nature Park and I've got Sam. Hello, Sam.
Hello.
Well, what's your role, first of all?
So I am a education and community officer.
So we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But first, I'd like to know a bit more about the background to Whisby itself. How come it's here?
So Whisby Nature Park is basically a nature reserve which is constructed of an old set of gravel pits. So you can see the lakes right behind us here. So the gravel pits were started kind of ye olde times. They worked their way down from the north of the reserve and slowly made their way here.
So this wasn't the first lake then?
No. So the first lake was in what is called Willow Lake now. So
that's the other side of the railway line, isn't it?
The side of the railway bridge on the far north of the reserve. That's the original Whisby Nature Reserve. They moved their way down and then now the Whisby Nature Park encompasses all of this.
It's incredible. And this is the first lake that people tend to see, isn't it?
Yes, it's our main kind of attraction lake. We tend to get more visitors around this park because it's closer to the visitor centre. It's close to the car park. It's got a more accessible path than the far north of the reserve. So it tends to get the most traffic.
And how long have you been here now?
I've been here about 7.5 years.
And what a place to work. So this is where you come to every day with this view?
Pretty much. It's not bad.
It's not bad at all. I mean, do you ever tire of it? Do you get the binoculars out? Are you always looking at wildlife and nature?
Always looking at something. Usually, instead of up for the birds, I'm looking down for the ants myself. But
is that right?
Yes. Yeah,
is that more of an interest?
Yes, definitely for me. They're a bit understudied around the county and across the country, so I love a good underdog.
OK, look, we're going to come back and talk about the education centre where lots of people come to and the sort of things you do here. But first, we'll go out and about on the reserve and catch up with Jill. So we're out on the reserve at Whisby Nature Park with Deputy Warden Jill. How are things?
Very good, thank you. Nice to see you here.
And we've got a glorious day today. Which lake are we looking across at the moment?
So behind us is Grebe Lake and to the other side of us is Coot Lake, and we're at the entry point into the main part of the reserve at the moment.
Because when you arrive at Whisby, of course, there's the big car park there. It gets a lot of visitors, doesn't it?
Yes, Whisby is one of our most popular reserves for visitors. We get close to 200,000 visitors a year, so that's a lot of foot traffic.
And it puts a lot of pressure on, doesn't it?
It does put a lot of pressure on. There are a couple of different areas of the reserve that people can go to depending on what they want to do. If they want to come and walk their dog off a lead, there's an area of the lake on the other side of the car park before you come into this main part of the reserve that they can walk. It's a nice accessible path. They can walk their dogs off a lead around there. As soon as you come through that main arch onto the main part of the reserve, we do ask that you keep your dog on a lead.
And certain times of the year, that is the hot spot, isn't it, Thorpe Lake, for certain birds?
Yes, so in springtime, we get the black-headed gull colony, and they nest on those islands that are right in front of the wildlife barn. So you've got a fantastic viewing site of them kind of pairing up, building their nests, laying eggs, and the chicks hopefully fledging. It's a very exciting time on Thorpe Lake.
Very good, and that's what most people can see. Also, if they come and have a cup of coffee in the cafe area as well.
Yes, you can sit in the cafe, sit out on the deck, and watch the black-headed gull colony. We've also had swans nesting on there. We've had moorhens nesting there. So in springtime, it's a real flurry of activity.
So if people want to venture a bit further, you mentioned the arch. They come through an archway, and then there's a choice of places where people can wander, isn't there?
Yes. So we've got a number of circular walks. So on the reserve itself, we've got over 6 miles of accessible walking paths. So you can choose whether you want to go for that nice long walk, or if you want to do something shorter, you could do a loop around Grebe Lake here. We can take it all around there. You could do a loop around Coot Lake here. And then if you wanted to do that longer walk, you can go over the railway bridge, and then you're onto the really wild part of the reserve, which is around Willow Lake and what we call Magpie Walk and Willow Walk.
Well, what's also quite interesting about about the site here is you are quite close to, things going on in the outside world, because if you go around Grebe Lake, you get very close to the A46 Lincoln bypass. The other thing you do on Grebe Lake is you walk beside the railway line.
Yeah, and that's one of the really special things about Whisby. If you think, we are relatively close to Lincoln, we're in the middle of essentially an urban environment, and yet we're one of the most species rich and diverse nature reserves in Lincolnshire. So we're very proud of that, and it's amazing that they've managed to achieve that here at Whisby.
I've just spotted a couple of dragonflies flying over the water there. And this is quite an area for dragonflies, isn't it?
Yeah, so Whisby is a designated dragonfly hotspot because of the number of species and number of dragonflies that you will see here. So we have something like over 23 species being recorded here. So that's a really fantastic.
And some are really big, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got the big, the biggest ones you'll normally see would be the emperor dragonflies, which are these beautiful green and blue, very fast moving, very striking dragonflies. Yeah.
Just having a quick look at the map here then. So we've got Coot Lake, Grebe Lake, Teal Lake is across the other side of the A46 bypass. Do people venture across there, and what are the attractions there?
Yes, so to get there, you can there's a path that takes you under the bypass, so you don't have to risk your life. And that's a wild, as much as possible, we try and keep the reserve as wild as possible. I've talked a little bit about the sanctuary areas that we try and do. So out at Teal Lake, that's very popular with our wading birds, and in the wintertime, autumn and wintertime in particular, you might see a lot of birds, what we call on passage, as they're passing through. It's really quiet, it's serene, it's just a beautiful spot to really be immersed. And yes, you can hear the railway as it comes past, you can hear the A46, but the wildlife there is just going about its business. I've sat at the screen and watched two fox cubs playing in the distance as common terns are nesting on the island there. It's a really magical spot.
I think what we'll do, we'll walk on a little bit, because I'd like to get to another sort of junction that provides a bit of a barrier and a bit of a change on the reserve, because that's where the railway line is, and it's very different the other side of that. So let's go up to the railway line and see how things change.
Sure.
Jill, we've actually moved now to what I was describing as a bit of a boundary, because we're right beside the railway line now at Whisby. So just explain, because what's special about the area is there are so many different habitats, aren't there?
That's right. So the railway line kind of cuts Whisby in half. But Whisby itself, when you look at the whole kind of 375 acres that we've got here, it's very special in the fact that we've got such a diversity of habitats. We've got obviously 50% is probably open water bodies or moving water bodies. We've got grasslands, we've got meadows, we've got reed beds, we've got some fen, we've got woodland, we've got wet woodland, we've got some mature oak woodland, we've got scrub. We've also got a little patch of what we think is original Lincoln Heath. With that's the reason why we've got so many different species that we've been able to record here, because essentially there's a little bit of habitat that suits so many different species, and it also means there's a lot of different ways we're managing those habitats to keep everything in really good shape.
This is a place that I love to visit. It's a regular for me because I live quite close by. And when you go round, is it Grebe Lake, the far end of Grebe Lake, before you go under the A46, there's a patch there that I can remember seeing sheep. So do you use animals for maintenance at times?
Yes, we do. We have both cattle and sheep on the reserve, and they help with our grazing. So we can mow the patches of the reserve if we want with tractors or by hand, but we also like to use cattle and sheep. So we'll often put sheep in the wintertime, especially on that little patch. That's our heathland special. And they do a really good job of keeping that grass level low in the wintertime and helping move seed around and those kind of things. And we have some rare breed Northern Dairy shorthorn cattle that we've currently got in the grazing marsh, and they do a fantastic job grazing that area as well.
Because of course they'll graze, but they'll also leave deposits behind.
They will.
And that will encourage the insects and the bird life. It all evolves, doesn't it?
It does. Whisby is a very dynamic landscape. It's constantly evolving, and that's what natural processes are always doing. So they have a very integral part to play in the reserve about how we manage the reserve.
Sam, we're sort of looking at the education side of things with you now. You mentioned ants earlier on as a specialist subject of yours.
Yes.
Are there many ants around?
There are quite a lot of ants around. In particular, around this little area, there's one of my favourites, which is called, scientists call it Myrmeca.
Pardon?
Myrmeca.
Lovely.
Yeah. But common people like me tend to call it European fire ant. So it's a little red ant species, and it has a real nasty sting on the end.
I was going to say, when I see ants in the garden, the red ones are definitely the ones to avoid, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. All ants can bite, but it's more of the red ants usually that tend to have a bit of a sting.
Yeah, you see, I've learnt something already, and that's the joy of you being involved with the education side. There is a complete education centre here, isn't there?
There is, yes, there's an education centre here. It's almost 25 years old. It's got 2 large rooms. One we use as a classroom, one as a community hub. And we do school visits here. We do our own kids clubs, youth groups, adult training workshops. There's quite a lot that goes on here.
And I notice there's a sort of pontoon that takes us right down to the lake, so no doubt pond dipping is popular.
Very popular. It's one of our usual sellout activities throughout the year. Very popular activity. We get families, young people going down to the pond dipping platform, popping nets into the lake, finding little creatures, invertebrates, sometimes fish. We had a little stickleback fish yesterday. So all sorts around here. And you can find all sorts of creatures in our lake.
I've also noticed, as I've been wandering around Whisby today, there are little sort of display areas with butterflies on. So education is always there in the background, isn't it?
Yes. So we're big fans of public engagement and education here. Whether it's in your face, like they're coming to us for a school day or one of our family activity days during the summer or one of our workshops, or if it's a little bit more subversive and we have little free trails going around the lakes, they'll have little stops, whether it's a little activity they can do for 30 Days Wild in the summer, or it could be something like we've got today, which is little butterflies with little bits of information that tell you a bit about the different species.
So plenty of room inside. You've got 2 big classroom areas in there, haven't you? But if the weather is nice, come out here, you've got log seating.
Yep, we've got log seating. We've got an outdoor classroom made from an old parachute donated from the RAF at nearby RAF Waddington. We've got a wildlife pond constructed by our youth group, our junior wardens. We've got coppices, we've got trees, we've got a little orchard. We've got lots of different assets in this education grounds.
And what do you find when the school groups come? What are they particularly interested in, do you think?
So the big ones the schools come for is pond dipping.
Yep.
They love the pond dipping. Mini beast safaris, so looking for terrestrial invertebrates. So mini beasts and creatures without a backbone that live on land and in the air. We'll do environmental art with them. We'll do scavenger hunts. We have storytelling as well. So it's a real mix, but it's usually the big hitters are the pond dipping and the mini beasts.
And I suppose the best thing to do, go on the website, find out about activities coming up, particularly in the school holidays, because I'd imagine they get quite booked up, don't they?
They do. They get booked up real quick during the summer holidays.
OK, if you'd like to know more, go onto the website, find out all the information there. And if you've not been before, do make the effort. Come along to the Whisby Nature Park just outside Lincoln. And that's it for our latest Wilder Lincolnshire podcast from the Lincolnshire Wildlife Trust.